The day my husband married my little sister, I walked into the church with the gift bag that wasn't a gift at all. People stopped talking mid-sentence when they saw me. You could feel it, like somebody turned the volume down on the whole room. The Bluetooth speaker in the corner was still playing some old love song about forever. But the conversation, the laughter, the clinking of plastic cups, that all died the second I stepped through those double doors with my daughter at my side and that little pastel bag in my hand. The hall smelled like cheap roses and fried chicken. Somebody had sprayed way too much air freshener trying to cover up the grease. Folding chairs had been lined up in neat rows, white covers slipping down the legs and the back. Fake ivy climbed a metal arch where the pastor would stand. They had even thrown rose petals down the aisle, like this was some fairy tale love story, and not what it really was. A wedding built on the ashes of my marriage. Nia's arm brushed mine. She was trying to be brave for me. Her braids were pulled back in a bun, and her lips were pressed tight like she was holding words in her mouth. "You sure you're okay, Mama?" she whispered. "No," I said, because I promised myself I was done lying. "But I'm ready." We started walking, slow, like we had all the time in the world. I kept my eyes forward at first, just focusing on the aisle runner and the little wrinkles in it where someone's shoe had caught. I could feel everybody's eyes crawling over me, counting the seconds until I made a scene or turned around and left. I didn't do either. When I finally lifted my head, I saw them. Darius stood near the front, just off to the side of the arch, talking big like always. He was in a navy blue suit I'd ironed for him a dozen times over the years, just not today. He threw his head back and laughed at something one of his friends said. And for a moment, he looked exactly like the man I married. Loud, charming, the center of whatever room he walked into. And then he saw me. The laugh cut off midair. His smile flickered, then tried to come back smaller, tighter. He grabbed at his tie like it was suddenly choking him. His eyes dropped to the bag in my hand, then back up to my face, searching for something. Rage, tears, maybe a sign I'd come to beg. He didn't find it. On the other side of the arch stood my baby sister, Tasha, 33 years old and wearing white like innocence itself. The dress hugged every line of her body. The same dress she used to twirl around in my bedroom years ago, laughing, "One day when the right man comes." I guess she decided my husband qualified. Her makeup was perfect, lashes thick, lips glossy. But when she saw me, some of that shine slipped. She blinked, her fingers tightening around the bouquet. For a moment, we just looked at each other across the room. Me and my simple dark green dress, her and her stolen fairy tale. My mother sat in the second row, church hat on, tissue already in her hand. When her eyes landed on me, they went wide, and she shook her head just the slightest bit, a warning. Don't start. Don't embarrass us. Be the bigger person. I had heard that message my whole life without her saying a word. I let my gaze move slowly around the room. Aunties pretending not to stare. Cousins who'd unfriended me quietly, now watching me like a live show. Church folks who'd whispered that I needed to let it go if I wanted peace. All of them sitting in folding chairs, waiting to see if I would explode or fold. They all thought they knew what this day was. They thought I was here to prove something, that I was gracious, that I'd forgiven, that I was mature enough to bless the same man and woman who had broken me 3 weeks ago in my own bed. They thought my presence meant acceptance. What they didn't know was what was inside that little pastel bag. My fingers curled around the rope handles. Under the tissue paper was a manila folder, edges worn from where I'd held it too tight in the lawyer's office. Inside that folder were copies of the deed, the business registration, the separation filing, and a letter that explained exactly who owned what and who had been using who. And in my purse, quiet as a heartbeat, was my phone. The one that held his own voice bragging about moving money I supposedly didn't know about. 3 weeks of paperwork, passwords, and private meetings. 3 weeks of pretending my silence meant surrender, while I was really just stacking each piece of truth on top of the last.
The Bluetooth speaker crackled, then faded as the pastor cleared his throat at the front. He smoothed his robe, opened his Bible, and smiled out at the crowd. His voice rolled over the room, warm and steady, talking about love, about forgiveness, about how God could build beauty out of brokenness. He glanced at me once when he mentioned brokenness. I gave him the smallest nod. He didn't know everything, but he knew enough to know this was messy. I shifted the bag to my left hand and slipped my right inside, my fingertips brushing over smooth paper, the sharp corner of the folder. My heart was beating so loud I could feel it in my ears.
But my voice, when I finally used it, was going to be calm. I had promised myself that. As the pastor turned the page and started to lead them toward vows, toward rings, toward that line everyone was waiting for, if anyone knows of any lawful reason, I felt all those eyes on my back like weight. They thought my silence meant defeat. They were about to learn it was just preparation. You know, people always ask how a woman gets to a moment like that. Standing in a church at her husband's second wedding, holding evidence in a gift bag like it's a birthday present. They think it must happen overnight, that one big betrayal is all it takes. But that's not how it works. It starts in the little mornings nobody notices. For me, it started in our kitchen at 6:30 on regular days, before the cheating, before the lies got bold enough to show their faces in daylight. Most mornings looked the same. The sky outside the window would still be gray-blue, the street lights just blinking off. I'd stand at the stove in my scrubs, making coffee in the old drip pot that spat and hissed like it had an attitude. Eggs in one pan, turkey bacon in another. The smell of toast, the low murmur of the radio playing old school R&B from the little speaker on the counter. "Mom, have you seen my charger?" Nia would rush through like a small storm, backpack half-zipped, braid swinging. "On the table, under your sociology book," I say, flipping eggs without looking. I knew where her things were better than she did. That was my job. I was the finder, the fixer, the one who made sure everybody else's day started smooth. Darius would sit at the end of the table, phone in his hand, thumb moving fast. Sometimes he'd grunt at something I said. Sometimes he'd offer a whole sentence. Most days, his eyes never left the screen. "How's your schedule today?" I'd ask, sliding his plate in front of him. "Busy." He'd take a bite without looking up. "Got 2 estimates this morning, then checking on that remodel on Jefferson. Then, I don't even know. Folks blowing up my phone. You know how it is when you in demand." I did know how it was, just not from my world. In my world, I set my old folks' beds and listened to them talk about the past. I helped them bathe and eat and remember their pills. Nobody called me in demand. They just called me when they were scared. I say, sipping my coffee. "Sounds like a lot." He'd chuckle. "That's what happens when you marry a boss, baby. You got a hot commodity in your house." He loved saying things like that. Loud, big, like he was blessing us with his own presence. And for a while, I let it make me feel proud. I liked telling people my husband owned his own construction company, that he didn't punch somebody else's clock. I don't think I realized how many times I shrank myself a little bit so he could feel bigger. When I met Darius, I was 29 and exhausted in every way a person can be, widowed for almost 2 years from my first husband, working and parenting and grieving at the same time. I'd gotten used to doing life on hard mode. My porch was falling apart, Nia was outgrowing her shoes faster than I could buy them, and my car made a noise that sounded like a small animal screaming every time I turned left. He showed up in a work truck one afternoon, all smiles and easy charm, and offered to fix the porch for way less than the quote I'd gotten. "Single mom discount," he said with a grin, leaning on the railing like he had all day. Back then, that charm felt like a life raft. He'd bring little things, hot wings for me after late shifts, new sneakers for Mia just because, gas in my tank when I didn't ask. He listened when I talked about my patience, about my worries. He told me I was strong, that I'd done more alone than some folks did in a marriage. "Let somebody take care of you for a change," he'd whisper, arm around my waist, breath warm in my ear. I wanted to believe him so badly, I wrapped my whole self around that promise. Tasha was the opposite of everything I was in those days. She was my wild, spark little sister, always with a new hairstyle, a fresh tattoo idea, a story about some man who said he loved her and then blocked her number 2 weeks later. She posted every emotion straight to her Instagram story. If she cried, the whole city knew it. If she laughed, you heard it 3 houses down. "Renee, come out with us on Fridays," she whined over the phone on Fridays. "You too young to be acting like somebody grandma. Darius can watch Nia." And I'd laugh because that's what everyone called me. Old lady, mama, grandma spirit. At 36, I did move like somebody twice my age sometimes. I'd seen too much. Losing a husband will do that to you. Tasha floated through jobs like outfits. Bartender, receptionist, bottle girl, manager at some boutique that closed after 3 months. When she crashed, she always called me. "Renee, can you help me with my phone bill this month? They about to cut it off and I got interviews. Renee, my car making a weird noise. Can I leave it at your place? Renee, can I stay with you for a few weeks just until I get back on my feet?"
And because I was the big sister, the responsible one, the one Mom always bragged on at church, I said yes more than I said no. I picked her up from more parking lots than I care to remember. I let her sleep on my couch after crying over men who didn't even know her middle name. When I introduced her to Darius officially, it felt like bringing 2 different worlds together. We had a little cookout in the backyard to celebrate his first big contract. The grill smoke curled up into the summer air, kids were running around with popsicles, and the music was loud enough that Miss Gloria next door threatened to call the city. "This my little sister, Tasha," I had said, nudging her forward. "T, that's Darius. Don't start no mess." She laughed, tossed her braids over her shoulder. "Boy, I heard about you," she said, eyes sliding over him in a way I didn't recognize yet. "Thank you for taking care of my sister. She hard-headed, but she worth it." Darius grinned, looking her up and down once before pulling me close and kissing my forehead. "She more than worth it," he said. "Y'all got a good one in the family." Everybody laughed. It was harmless then. Or at least, I told myself that. Over time, they became their own little comedy show at family functions. Tasha would plop down next to him at the plastic table, bump his shoulder, laugh too loud at his stories. She'd call him bro-in-law in this sing-song voice, leaning in just a bit too close when she showed him videos on her phone. "You two need your own TikTok," one of my cousins joked once. "Y'all funnier than them couples on my For You page." Naya was across the table that day, picking at her food. Later, when it was just us in the car, she looked over at me at a red light. "They act like a TikTok couple sometimes," she said lightly, blowing a bubble with her gum. I frowned, hands on the wheel. "What you mean?" She shrugged quick, suddenly backpedaling. "I'm playing, Mom. Relax. You know Tasha just like attention." I laughed it off, like she told me to. "Yeah, well, they both do," I said, rolling my eyes. "Let them enjoy the spotlight. I'm too tired." But that comment sat in the back of my mind, like a little splinter you can feel but can't see. Every time I saw Tasha scoop closer at a barbecue or heard Darius say, "Tasha, you crazy," with that grin, something twisted in my stomach. I pushed it down. I had pushed a lot of things down in my life. When we started Carter & Co. Construction, everybody clapped for Darius. "Black man with his own company, that's what I'm talking about," the older men said, shaking his hand. "Provider," the church ladies whispered, patting my arm. Nobody saw the hours I spent in that cramped office downtown, signing forms I barely understood because the man in the tie said it was standard. Nobody saw me cash out the last of the small inheritance from my first husband, wiping tears from my eyes in the bank parking lot before I went home and told Darius I was excited. "This is our dream, baby," he'd said, kissing me hard, lifting me off my feet. "We building something for Naya, for our future kids, for us." He told everybody we built this together. But the papers he stuffed in that locked drawer might as well have been written in a language I didn't speak. I let him handle the man stuff, loans, grants, contracts, because Mom's voice lived in my head. Don't make him feel like you don't need him. Men need to feel needed. So I let him. I kept cooking, kept working my home health jobs, kept paying half the bills, and kept saying thank you every time he did what a grown man is supposed to do. And every time I saw that locked drawer, a little voice whispered, "You should know what's in there." I told that voice to hush too. The night before everything broke, I came home from a long shift to find Tasha and Darius sitting at my kitchen table, faces lit by his phone screen. They were leaning in close, laughing at some video. "Y'all look like teenagers," I said, setting my bag down. Tasha jumped up, coming over to kiss my cheek. "Hey, big sis, we were just clowning. You tired? You want me to start the rice?" They barely paused when I walked in. That bothered me more than I admitted. I stood at the stove, listening to them laugh behind me, my hands moving on autopilot, rinse the rice, season the chicken, stir the pot. My chest felt tight for no reason I could name out loud. I told myself this is what family looks like. People comfortable with each other. People who don't jump apart when you walk in because they're not doing anything wrong. I wish I had listened to that twist in my stomach then. Because a few days later, on a gray Thursday afternoon, I was going to find out exactly what my daughter had been seeing when she joked that they acted like a TikTok couple. That little twist in my stomach I kept ignoring, it finally had its say that Thursday.
That morning started like any other. I saw 3 patients, changed 2 dressings, and listened to one old man tell me the same story about his first car like it was brand new. The sky was that dull gray that makes the whole day feel tired. On my way back toward home, the light drizzle started. Little drops on the windshield, the wipers squeaking every few seconds. I should have just gone home and laid down. Instead, I pulled into the grocery store because that's what I do. I take care of people, even when they don't deserve it. I grabbed a basket and walked the aisles on autopilot, tossing in chicken broth, noodles, ginger, lemons. I thought, let me make something warm for Darius. Let me try one more time to bring some comfort into that house. In my head, I pictured us at the table, maybe even laughing a little, like we used to. I imagined Tasha stopping by, the 3 of us eating together. I was still holding on to that picture, even with the splinters in my chest. By the time I pulled up in front of our house, the rain had eased to a mist. I parked and grabbed the grocery bags from the back. That's when I saw it. Tasha's little silver car, crooked in our driveway. I smiled without even thinking. "Look at that," I murmured to myself. "She beat me here." I told myself they were probably watching a movie or raiding my pantry. Maybe God heard my thought about us eating together and decided to give me that small mercy. It didn't even cross my mind to be suspicious. That's the part that still makes me shake my head. When I opened the front door, the house felt full, but quiet. The TV was on low in the living room, some sitcom laugh track way down in the background. One of Darius's hoodies was thrown over the arm of the couch, the good one I always told him to hang up. A half-empty bottle of water sat on the coffee table, beads of sweat still on the outside like somebody had just set it down. Right by the stairs sat a familiar sight, Tasha's heels, red ones this time, one on its side, the other pointed toward the steps. Her big purse was on the chair, spilling lip gloss and receipts. "Hello?" I called, pushing the door shut with my hip. "Anybody home?" No answer. Just that low TV noise and the faint hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I set the grocery bags on the counter, putting things away one by one. Chicken broth in the cabinet, ginger on the cutting board, lemons in the fruit bowl. Everything felt normal enough that I kept talking to myself under my breath, the way I do. "They probably upstairs running their mouths," I said, half smiling. "Lord knows those 2 can talk."
I filled the kettle and set it on the stove, the flame catching with a soft whoosh. While the water heated, I grabbed a small tray from the cabinet. It was a habit. Years of working in other people's homes, bringing them tea, soup, medicine. My hands had learned that rhythm. Tray, mug, crackers on a napkin. Take care of them first. Take care of you later. I dropped a ginger tea bag into the mug and poured the boiling water over it, watching the color swirl out. The smell of ginger rose up, sharp and clean. I added a few crackers, one of those little packages of lemon cookies I knew Tasha liked, and set everything neatly on the tray. In my mind, I saw myself pushing open the bedroom door, catching them mid-laugh, both of them pretending to be shocked, and me saying something like, "Look at y'all hiding from work." We'd sit on the bed, sip tea, maybe talk about whatever drama Tasha had going on. My heart was actually light for the first time in days. That's the part that breaks me now. I was walking straight toward the wreck with hope still in my hands. Tray balanced, I walked out of the kitchen and started up the stairs. The house felt different up there, too quiet. The sound from the TV downstairs faded until I could barely hear it. All I could pick up was my own breathing and the soft creak of the steps under my feet. Halfway up, a smell hit me. Lavender. My lavender. I frowned. I knew I hadn't lit any candles that morning. With work and rushing out, I barely remembered to lock the back door, let alone set an ambience. But there it was, that soft lavender scent drifting down the hallway. Familiar and wrong at the same time. My bedroom door was not all the way shut, just cracked, like someone tried to close it in a hurry and didn't quite make it. A thin strip of light stretched across the hallway floor. As I got closer, the tray starting to feel heavier with every step. I heard it, Darius's voice, low, not the big, booming tone he used when he was telling a story. This was his soft voice, the one he used when he wanted something, the one that used to make my knees weak. Then I heard her. Tasha laughed. Not her regular loud, choking laugh that made everybody else laugh with her. This one was quiet, breathy, like something pressed the sound down. She said his name in a way I had never heard my own sister say any man's name. My chest tightened. I paused just outside the door, my hand hovering there, the tray starting to tremble a little in my grip. 1,000 reasonable explanations flashed through my mind and died just as fast. Maybe they were watching something funny. Maybe she tripped and fell and they were, what, wrestling on my bed? Something deep in my gut whispered, "No, you already know."
I pushed the door open with my hip. Time did something strange then. It stretched. It thickened. The whole scene moved like it was underwater. The first thing I saw was my own duvet, twisted halfway off the bed, white with little blue flowers, the one I picked out on sale and was so proud of. The pillows were scattered, one on the floor, pillowcases askew. My nightstand drawer was half open, the lavender candle on top of it burning low, wax pooled around the wick. Then my eyes landed on skin, a bare shoulder, Tasha's shoulder. Brown, smooth, the tattoo of a tiny crown near her collarbone pressed against my sheets. Her hair was messy in that way that doesn't come from just laying down. The strap of something lacy was hanging useless near her elbow. Darius was half sitting up behind her, the sheet barely covering his waist. His chest was bare, the chain I bought him for his birthday resting against his skin. His face turned toward me slow, like he had to drag it through mud to look. Our eyes met. Renee. He said my name like it was a question, like he could somehow spin the picture in front of me into something else. Baby, wait, it's not. Tasha jerked, grabbing at the sheet, hands fumbling. Oh my God, she gasped, eyes huge. Oh my God, Renee, please, don't freak out.
I heard the cup crash before I felt it slip. China hitting hardwood. The sound thin and sharp. Crackers broke under my shoe. The tray tilted, then hung from my fingers somehow, my body refusing to let go, even as my mind left the room. It was like my ears filled up with cotton. Everything sounded far away. The TV downstairs, a car passing in the street, her saying his name, him saying mine, all of it dragged out, distorted. The smell of lavender was too strong now, wrapped around another smell, sweat, and something that belonged only where they had put themselves, in my bed, in my safe place. My hands shook, my throat closed. My first instinct was to scream, to throw the tray, to rush the bed and pull her by that messy hair, to hit him, hit something, hit anything. But nothing came out. I felt myself go cold from the inside out. It started in my chest like someone pulled a plug and let all the heat drain. It spread down my arms, into my fingers, up my neck. "You're in my bed," I heard myself say. My voice didn't sound like mine. It was flat, almost calm. I wasn't asking a question. I wasn't accusing. I was just naming what was in front of me. Like maybe if I said it plain enough, reality would obey and stop spinning. Darius opened his mouth, closed it, reached for me with one hand like that would fix it, like he could pull me into the same bed he'd just shared with my sister and talk his way out of it. Tasha jerked, grabbing at the sheet, hands fumbling. "Oh my God," she gasped, eyes huge. "Oh my God, Renee, please, just let us explain. It's not..." I looked at both of them. Really looked. My husband, my sister, in my bed, under my candle, with my sheets. And something in me broke clean down the middle. I didn't yell. I didn't throw. I didn't say any of the words rushing through my head. I just took one step back, then another. I backed out of that doorway like you back away from a wild dog. Slow, careful. Eyes still locked on them. When my heel hit the broken cup, it crunched under my shoe, porcelain grinding against the floor. The pain in my ankle from the hot tea finally registered, sharp and bright, but it still wasn't enough to break whatever trance I was in. I turned away and walked down the hallway. The lavender smell followed me, clinging to my clothes. The tray was still in my hands. I stared at it for a half second at the top of the stairs, then set it down carefully on the little table by the wall, like I was afraid of making another mess. The TV laughed at nothing downstairs as I came down one step at a time, hands sliding along the banister. My legs felt like they were moving through wet cement. I could hear them behind me, voices overlapping, calling my name, but I didn't answer. I didn't trust myself to. In the kitchen, the groceries were still half put away. A lemon rolled in the sink where I had dropped it earlier. The fluorescent light hummed faintly overhead, too bright for what I had just seen. I pulled out a chair at the table and sat down hard. My breath came shallow, like there was no room in my chest for air and shock at the same time. My hands were still trembling, so I pressed them flat against the table to make them stop. On the refrigerator, held up with a magnet shaped like a little house, was our family calendar. Birthdays written in blue ink, due dates for Darius's job scribbled in red ink, Nia's class schedule noted on sticky notes, and there in the corner of next month was something that made my stomach twist again. A little heart I'd drawn for our wedding anniversary. 7 years. I stared at that heart until my eyes burned. I thought about the neighbors, about whether they seen Tasha's car in the driveway for hours. I thought about Mom, about what she'd say when she heard. And underneath that all was a deeper humiliation. I thought about every time I defended those two, laughed off their closeness, called myself crazy for feeling something was wrong.
"I am not crazy," I whispered to myself, voice barely audible. Their voices floated down the stairs, Darius calling my name, Tasha sobbing, feet moving around, a door closing somewhere. I couldn't make out words, just tones. Panic, guilt, anger that they'd been caught. My phone sat on the table, screen dark. For a second, my hand moved toward it, muscle memory reaching for Darius's contact, like maybe there was a version of this where I called him from the kitchen and he walked down fully dressed, and nothing had ever happened. Instead, my finger slid past his name and hovered over another one. Baby, I said when Nia picked up, I need you to come home. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, low, steady, like I was holding something heavy in my mouth. Right now. She must have heard something in it because she didn't ask questions. Okay, Mama, I'm on my way. Are you okay? I'm not crazy, I said again, more to myself than to her. I just need you to see something with your own eyes. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. I'm coming, she said, and hung up. For the first time since I opened that bedroom door, I felt something besides shock. It was small and quiet, but it was there. I was not going to let them rewrite this story without me. The hours that followed were messy in ways I don't think I could ever fully explain, even if I had all day. Darius came downstairs first, jeans pulled on, t-shirt half wrong, trying to act like this was a misunderstanding we could talk through if I would just stop being dramatic. Tasha stayed upstairs at first, then crept down, wrapped in a blanket, like a child who'd had a nightmare instead of a grown woman who created one. They talked fast, they talked over each other, they talked around the truth. Can we please sit down like adults, Darius said, hands up like he was the calm one. Baby, listen, it just happened. We were both in a bad place and we caught feelings. It don't mean I don't love you. I stared at him, at the line his hair made, at the scar on his chin I'd kissed 100 times. I thought about how many nights he told me I was overreacting when my gut said something was off. Do you hear yourself? I asked quietly. You caught feelings with my sister in my bed. Tasha was crying for real now, streaks of mascara cutting down her cheeks. I didn't choose this, Renee. You know my heart. I never meant to hurt you. I've always been second best, and when somebody finally saw me... Somebody, I cut in, eyebrows lifting. You mean my husband? She flinched like I'd slapped her, though I hadn't moved. You don't understand, she whispered. You always had everything together. You had the husband, the house, the kid. I was just extra. I didn't plan this, I swear to God. I realized in that moment that both of them were more worried about the story than the sin. They were building the narrative before the dust even settled. It just happened. We fell in love. We didn't mean to. They were already smoothing out the sharp parts in their minds. Before I could even decide how to respond, the front door opened fast. Nia stepped in, hair damp from the drizzle, backpack still on one shoulder. Her eyes scanned the room in a second. Me at the table, Darius by the counter, Tasha clutching that blanket. Something in her face hardened. What happened? She asked, but her eyes were on me, not them. I swallowed. That lump in my throat felt like it weighed 10 pounds. Go upstairs, I said. Take a look in my room. Darius moved quick. Nia, that's not necessary. Your mama is upset, and people make things bigger than they are when emotions run high. There's no need for you to move, she said, voice sharp in a way I wasn't used to hearing. He froze. She went up those stairs, 2 at a time. We waited. The house seemed to hold its breath. I could hear her footsteps cross the landing, the bedroom door creak, then nothing. A beat later, the sound of her running water in the bathroom, the flush, the faucet. Little normal sounds that suddenly felt strange. When she came back down, her face was steady, but her eyes were not. They glistened, bright and hot. You did that in my mama's bed, she said, looking straight at Darius. With her sister? He opened his mouth, but she turned to Tasha before he could answer. And you, she said, her voice shaking now,
You let me call you auntie. You held me when I cried about boys doing me dirty, and you did this to my mom? Tasha lost whatever words she had. She just cried, head bowed, shoulders shaking. That was the moment my numbness started to crack. Seeing my baby standing there, hurt not just for herself but for me, pulled something up out of me that had been buried under shock. I stood up slowly. My legs were steady now. I all need to leave, I said. Darius blinked. Renee, baby, we can talk about this. No, I said, and I heard my own voice, firm and clear. You need to leave my house. You and my sister. Tasha whispered. Where am I supposed to go? You've always landed somewhere. You'll figure it out again. There were more words after that. Please, promises, blame. At some point, Darius called me cold. Tasha accused me of choosing pride over family. I'm sure I said some things I don't even remember. Shock does that.
But what I remember clearly is the way the air felt when the door finally closed behind them. Like someone took a wet blanket off my shoulders. Like the house exhaled. For a few minutes, Nia and I just stood there, listening to the emptiness. Then I felt my knees start to give and she rushed to catch me, both of us sinking to the kitchen floor. I cried then, ugly, shaking, broken crying, my face in my hands. Nia held me and cried too, her tears dropping into my hair. Mom, I'm so sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. I should have said something earlier. I didn't want to be wrong. It's not your job to watch grown folks, I whispered, pulling her closer. They knew better. They chose not to do better. That night, my phone buzzed until the battery died. Text after text, call after call. Darius, Tasha, Mom, unknown numbers, group chats lighting up, words like talk and forgive and don't do anything crazy. What none of them realized yet was that me sitting there quietly, letting my phone ring, was the least crazy thing I could do. In the days that followed, the drama didn't calm down, it just changed shape. Darius alternated between apologizing and lecturing. One minute it was, baby, I'm so sorry, I messed up, please don't throw away all these years. And the next it was, you know we've been off for a while, you can't act like this came out of nowhere, be real. He sat at my kitchen table one afternoon, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like a man in prayer. Look, he said, what happened with me and Tasha, it wasn't planned. We were both hurting and it went too far, but we're all adults. We can figure something out that works for everybody. You mean me stepping aside so y'all can play happy family? I asked. He flinched. I'm saying, let's take a break. You stay here, get your head right. I go to my mama's for a while. Maybe down the line we can see where everybody's heart really is. Are you hearing yourself? I said. You're asking your wife to sit in the house she paid for and wait while you go test your heart with her sister? He sighed like I was being unreasonable. You making it sound bad. I said, it is bad. There's no other way to make it sound. Tasha's performance was no better. She showed up a couple days later with red eyes and a grocery store bouquet, knocking on my door like a scared teenager. Renee, please, she said when I opened it just enough for her to see my face. I can't even sleep. I feel so guilty. I'm throwing up. I didn't wake up one day and decide, hey, I'm going to fall in love with my sister's husband. It happened. You know my heart. You know I never had nothing that was just mine. That's a lie, I said quietly. You've had plenty of things that were just yours. Jobs, apartments, men. You left every one of them when it got hard. Now you want mine because I held on to it. She flinched. That's not true. He sees me. I've always been in your shadow. You were the good one, the responsible one, mama's favorite. I was just the extra child. You chose to climb into my bed. You weren't pushed.
She sobbed louder, clutching the flowers. Don't tell Mom, please. At least not all the details. She'll never forgive me. And the church, they'll tear me apart. I didn't do this, I reminded her. You did. Mom found out soon enough. Not from me. From whoever lives on the phone in our family. By the time she called, she already had her version. Renee, she skipped the hello. What is this I'm hearing about you walking on something? You know how folks like to exaggerate. Tell me the truth. I saw exactly what they said I saw. I walked in on my youngest child and my husband in my bed. There was a pause. I could hear the TV in her background. Some preacher's voice turned low. Well, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing. Lord have mercy. But baby, people make mistakes. The devil gets busy. We can't let him tear this family apart because of one bad choice. One bad choice? I repeated. Mama, they've been making choices for a while. I just caught them this time. She sighed. Renee, you are 36. You pretty. You got your own job. You will bounce back. But your sister? She fragile. Darius, he a man. Men do stupid things. Don't let this one thing destroy everything we built as a family. And there it was. My pain was expendable. The family image was not. I'm done with this marriage. I'm not staying with the man who sleeps with my sister. I don't care how fragile you think she is. You'll find somebody else, she said quickly, like that solved anything. But right now, we need to figure out how to move past this, how to keep folks from talking. Family business stays in the family. What she really meant was, don't embarrass us. The rumors started anyway. Because if there's one thing people love more than a love story, it's a scandal. Within a week, I started hearing little pieces of the version Darius and Tasha were telling. He says y'all been basically separated for months, one cousin told me on the phone. He said you were shutting him out, treating him like a roommate.
Another friend pulled me aside at the store. Girl, you know he out here saying he tried to talk to you and you wouldn't listen. That you hadn't been intimate in a long time, like you turned cold on him. He's saying he and Tasha just connected, that you pushed him away. Cold, controlling, checked out. That was my new name in their story. It didn't matter that I'd been cooking, working, paying bills, trying to stretch myself between my patients, my child, and my husband's moods. It didn't matter that I'd been pushing down my own needs to keep the peace. They were rearranging the pieces so they could feel like the victims. Then the first letter came. I found it in the mailbox one afternoon. A plain white envelope from a bank I recognized but didn't deal with directly. Late payment notice. Loan ending in numbers I didn't know. Both are names at the top. I stood on the porch reading that letter 3 times over. Amount due, days past due, consequences for default. Those words felt like they were written in another language. When I called Darius, his voice went defensive before I even finished my first sentence. I don't know why you tripping, he said. You signed the papers. You just don't remember. You always so scattered when it comes to this stuff. I don't sign things I don't understand by myself, I said slowly. If I signed that, it was because you put it in front of me and told me it was something else. So now I'm a liar? He snapped. Look, if you really walking away, you need to understand. You walking into a mess. Them bills in your name too. You leave, you're gonna drown in debt while I figure out how to move on. He meant it as a threat. It worked as a wake-up call. That was when the humiliation started to turn into something else. Fear, then anger, then a kind of cold clarity. The darkest moment wasn't even the day I found them. It was a week later, standing in my own living room, listening to Miss Gloria talk through my screen door. You know I mind my business, she said, which was a lie, but I seen some things. I raised an eyebrow. Like what? I seen your man and your sister coming out that restaurant on Elm hand in hand, laughing like 2 kids. This was 2 nights ago. And your mama, she was with them. Everybody smiling, like they was celebrating something. My stomach twisted. Celebrating what? I don't know, she said, but they looked happy, real happy. Folks at the next table was looking at them like a new couple. Later that same day, Mom came by, standing in my doorway with a bowl of stew and a face full of strange excitement. She hadn't even sat down when she said I talked to them. They're thinking about making it official, getting married, keeping it small and tasteful, just close family, turn all this mess into a testimony. I just stared at her. My brain took a few seconds to process the words. Married? I repeated. They want to get married? It'll help shut people up, she said, as if this was obvious. Right now, folks got all kinds of stories. But if they make it right in the eyes of God, have a proper ceremony, people will have to respect that. And baby, it would mean a lot if you could show your blessing. Show them you're mature. My stomach flipped. It wasn't enough that they had broken their vows with each other. Now they wanted to put new vows on top of the broken ones and call it healing, and they wanted me to stand there and clap. That's when something in me went from broken to hard. I realized they didn't just want my silence, they wanted my public approval. They wanted me to stand there in some pastel dress and smile so the story looked sweet and holy. I thought they think I'm that weak. They really do. From that moment, I stopped arguing. I stopped trying to convince anybody of anything. I stopped explaining how hurt I was. Instead, I started paying attention. Late that night, after Mom left and the house was quiet again, I pulled out an old plastic bin from the closet. It was full of papers I'd been too tired to sort. Closing documents, old statements, contracts. I sat on the bedroom floor with that bin and started digging. I found the thick stack from when we bought the house, all those signatures and dates. I found the folder from the day we registered Carter & Co. Construction, my handwriting scrawled on forms I barely remembered. I found old emails printed out where some grant officer congratulated Mrs. Carter on her woman-owned business certification. My heart started to race, but not from panic this time, from possibility. I took pictures of everything with my phone, one page at a time. I opened my old email and searched for words like mortgage, loan, LLC. I copied account numbers into a notebook. I started writing down dates, names, little details I'd brushed past before. I didn't have a plan yet. I just knew one thing. I was done letting other people be the only ones who knew what was in that locked drawer. The next step came from somebody I never would have expected. One of my home health patients, Miss Dorothy, had a daughter who was always in and out juggling her mama's paperwork with conference calls. One afternoon, while I was changing Miss Dorothy's bandages, her daughter stayed in the kitchen with me, her laptop open, her eyes flicking between spreadsheets and her mother's prescriptions.
I am not crazy, I whispered to myself, voice barely audible. Their voices floated down the stairs, Darius calling my name, Tasha sobbing, feet moving around, a door closing somewhere. I couldn't make out words, just tones. Panic, guilt, anger that they'd been caught. My phone sat on the table, screen dark. For a second, my hand moved toward it, muscle memory reaching for Darius's contact, like maybe there was a version of this where I called him from the kitchen and he walked down fully dressed and nothing had ever happened. Instead, my finger slid past his name and hovered over another one. Baby, I said when Nia picked up, I need you to come home. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, low, steady, like I was holding something heavy in my mouth. Right now. She must have heard something in it because she didn't ask questions. Okay, Mama, I'm on my way. Are you okay? I'm not crazy, I said again, more to myself than to her. I just need you to see something with your own eyes. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. I'm coming, she said, and hung up. For the first time since I opened that bedroom door, I felt something besides shock. It was small and quiet, but it was there. I was not going to let them rewrite this story without me.
The hours that followed were messy in ways I don't think I could ever fully explain, even if I had all day. Darius came downstairs first, jeans pulled on, t-shirt half wrong, trying to act like this was a misunderstanding we could talk through if I would just stop being dramatic. Tasha stayed upstairs at first, then crept down, wrapped in a blanket, like a child who'd had a nightmare instead of a grown woman who created one. They talked fast, they talked over each other, they talked around the truth. "Can we please sit down like adults?" Darius said, hands up like he was the calm one. "Baby, listen, it just happened. We were both in a bad place and we caught feelings. It don't mean I don't love you." I stared at him, at the line his hair made, at the scar on his chin I'd kissed 100 times. I thought about how many nights he told me I was overreacting when my gut said something was off. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked quietly. "You caught feelings with my sister in my bed." Tasha was crying for real now, streaks of mascara cutting down her cheeks. "I didn't choose this, Renee. You know my heart. I never meant to hurt you. I've always been second best, and when somebody finally saw me—" "Somebody," I cut in, eyebrows lifting. "You mean my husband?" She flinched like I'd slapped her, though I hadn't moved. "You don't understand," she whispered. "You always had everything together. You had the husband, the house, the kid. I was just extra. I didn't plan this, I swear to God." I realized in that moment that both of them were more worried about the story than the sin. They were building the narrative before the dust even settled. It just happened. We fell in love. We didn't mean to. They were already smoothing out the sharp parts in their minds. Before I could even decide how to respond, the front door opened fast. Nia stepped in, hair damp from the drizzle, backpack still on one shoulder. Her eyes scanned the room in a second. Me at the table, Darius by the counter, Tasha clutching that blanket. Something in her face hardened. "What happened?" she asked, but her eyes were on me, not them. I swallowed. That lump in my throat felt like it weighed 10 pounds. "Go upstairs," I said. "Take a look in my room." Darius moved quick. "Nia, that's not necessary. Your mama is upset, and people make things bigger than they are when emotions run high. There's no need for you to move," she said, voice sharp in a way I wasn't used to hearing. He froze. She went up those stairs, 2 at a time. We waited. The house seemed to hold its breath. I could hear her footsteps cross the landing, the bedroom door creak, then nothing. A beat later, the sound of her running water in the bathroom, the flush, the faucet. Little normal sounds that suddenly felt strange. When she came back down, her face was steady, but her eyes were not. They glistened, bright and hot. "You did that in my mama's bed?" she said, looking straight at Darius. "With her sister?" He opened his mouth, but she turned to Tasha before he could answer. "And you," she said, her voice shaking now. "You let me call you auntie. You held me when I cried about boys doing me dirty, and you did this to my mom?" Tasha lost whatever words she had. She just cried, head bowed, shoulders shaking. That was the moment my numbness started to crack. Seeing my baby standing there, hurt not just for herself but for me, pulled something up out of me that had been buried under shock. I stood up slowly. My legs were steady now. "I all need to leave," I said. Darius blinked. "Renee, baby, we can talk about this." "No," I said, and I heard my own voice, firm and clear. "You need to leave my house. You and my sister." Tasha whispered. "Where am I supposed to go?" "You've always landed somewhere. You'll figure it out again." There were more words after that. Please, promises, blame. At some point, Darius called me cold. Tasha accused me of choosing pride over family. I'm sure I said some things I don't even remember. Shock does that.
You look tired, Miss Renee, she said, pouring coffee. More than usual. I hesitated. I'm used to hearing folks' stories, not telling my own. But something about her, maybe the way she moved through both worlds, caring and business, made me open my mouth. I found my husband in my bed with my sister. And now they planning a wedding. Her eyes widened. She shut the laptop. I'm sorry, what? The whole story came out in pieces like I was emptying a bag I'd stuffed too full. The bedroom, the tears, the letter from the bank, the whispers about a small, tasteful wedding, my mother's pressure to bless the mess. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. You got a lawyer? She asked finally. I shook my head. My mama says we can handle it as a family, keep it out of court. She snorted. Your mama is not the one whose name is on those papers. I blinked. How you know my name is? She pointed at the stack of forms I'd brought with me that day, stuffed in a grocery bag beside my purse. I'd gotten in the habit of carrying those papers everywhere, like a security blanket. She said, you keep rifling through those like they'll bite you. You ever actually had somebody explain them to you?
No, I admitted. I signed whatever the loan officer and my husband put in front of me and went to work. Yeah, she sighed. That's how women end up holding the bag. She reached into her own tote and pulled out a business card. I'm a paralegal, she said. Family law. If you were my mama, I'd drag you to my boss myself. You need real advice, not your mom's church committee. On the card, in simple black letters, was a name. Elena Ramirez. Family law. Call her, Miss Dorothy's daughter said. Just talk. You don't owe these people your silence. The next week, I found myself sitting in a small office that smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner. The waiting room chairs were a little worn. The art on the walls was generic, but everything was neat. Safe. When Elena stepped out to shake my hand, she didn't look surprised to see me. I guess women like me walk into her office every day. Miss Carter, she said, I'm Elena. Come on back. Her office was small but bright, a big window letting in afternoon light. Files were stacked on a shelf behind her, red and blue and black. A little radio on the desk played soft Spanish music, low enough to be a hum. I sat in the chair across from her desk and set my grocery bag full of papers at my feet. Suddenly, I felt very young and very foolish, like a teenager called into the principal's office. You can start wherever you want, she said, folding her hands on the desk. Take your time. I started with the bed. I think I had to. Saying that part out loud to a stranger felt like swallowing glass, but I did it. Then I moved through the rest. The texts, the family meetings, the letter from the bank, the talk of a wedding, Mom's insistence that we fix it in-house. Elena listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. Every now and then she would nod or jot something down on a yellow pad. When my throat got tight, she quietly slid a box of tissues across the desk. I took a tissue and kept going. Finally, I reached into the bag and pulled out the stack of documents. I don't really know what any of this truly says. I just know my name is on a lot of it, and somebody told me that means I'm in trouble too. Let's see, she said, pulling the pile closer. She put on a pair of glasses and began to lay the papers out like a puzzle, grouping some together, flipping pages, highlighting things with her pen. The house, she murmured, tugging one set aside. Loan documents, email printouts. Okay. She picked up the deed first. When did you buy your house? She asked. About 6 years ago. I had some money left and from my first husband, and he, Darius, said it was time to stop renting. She traced a line on the page with her pen. And whose credit was used primarily to qualify? I think mine, I said. He had some stuff on his. Late payments. She nodded. That tracks. See here? She turned the paper so I could see. Your name is listed as the first owner. You are the primary borrower on the mortgage. He is second. I blinked. So, she said gently, when people say his house, that's not actually what this says. This says you are at minimum an equal owner. Given who qualified, you may even have more leverage than he does. I felt a little dizzy, but people keep acting like I'm going to get kicked out and he's going to stay. People say a lot of things that don't line up with the paperwork. Let's keep going. She pulled out the business registration for Carter & Co. Construction. You both signed this? Yeah, I said slowly. He needed me on there for something, some grant. He said it would look good if it was us together. She smiled without humor. Look here. She pointed to a line that I had never paid attention to. Ownership percentages. 51% Renee Carter, 49% Darius Carter. My mouth actually fell open. That can't be right. It's his company. In practice, maybe. Legally, on paper, it's yours more than his. You are the majority owner. That's how he got certified as a woman-owned business for those grants.
Memories flashed. Him coming home with a check, waving it in the air, telling everyone, "We a black woman-owned business now, baby. Look at God." I had clapped and laughed, thinking it was just a label. I hadn't understood what it actually meant. Elena moved on to the loan papers, her brow furrowing. "This one," she said, tapping a page. "This is the late payment notice you mentioned." I nodded. "Your signature appears here, but the timing is interesting. Several other loans close to the same period. Money moving from the business account into a personal one." She looked up at me. "Do you remember signing all of these?" I flushed. "If I tell you I don't, does that make me sound stupid?" "It makes you sound like a woman who trusted her husband," she said. "That's not a crime. What he may have done with that trust could be." She sat back, glasses low on her nose. "Here's what I see. You are the primary owner of the house. You are the majority owner of the business he's been bragging about. Your credit and money built the foundation he's standing on. And he has been using that foundation to take out loans and move funds in a way that could raise eyebrows if somebody looked closely." I swallowed. "So what does that mean?" "It means," she said slowly, "you are not as powerless as they want you to believe. You have options." She listed them off, one by one, in plain, calm language. I could freeze certain accounts, especially anything tied to the business. As majority owner, I could reset online access and require both signatures for major moves. I could file for legal separation and establish clear dates and boundaries. If he continued to move money without my knowledge, I would have documentation showing that I never consented. "And the wedding?" I asked, hearing my own voice shake. "They're trying to get married in 3 weeks, like this marriage we're in is just expired. The state doesn't see it that way. If you file for separation now, dated before their ceremony, that will be on record. If he tries to remarry while still legally married to you, he's opening himself up to even more mess." I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Fear and relief tangled together in my chest. All this time, I thought I was clinging to his life, to his house, his business, like I was the stray he'd taken in. Elena shook her head. "He built his castle on your land. He just never expected you'd read the deed." Something in me straightened at those words. My shoulders, my spine, my voice. "What do I have to do?" I asked. She slid a new stack of papers across the desk. She said, "We'll start with this. It won't fix your heart, but it will protect your future. And when you walk into that church, if you still choose to, you won't be walking in as some bitter ex. You'll be walking in as the woman who actually owns what they thought they stole." I left that office with a folder under my arm, and for the first time in weeks, the tiniest ember of power burning in my chest. Those 3 weeks before the wedding felt like 3 years and 3 minutes at the same time. On the outside, I kept up the show.
I still went to work, changing bandages, taking blood pressures, listening to my patients' stories. I answered my mother's calls and hummed at the right places while she told me about color schemes and catering options I had never agreed to. To the rest of the world, I looked like a woman doing her best to rise above. Underneath, everything was shifting. First, I went to the bank and opened a new account in just my name. No joint access, no shared passwords. The woman at the desk asked, "Any particular reason?" And I just smiled and said, "New season." Then, with Elena's guidance and a lot of deep breaths, I logged into the business accounts as majority owner. Some of the passwords were old birthday combinations and nicknames. Darius never thought I'd bother to learn them. I changed access, nothing wild, nothing that would immediately alert him, just little things at first. Updated contact info to copy me on all alerts, notifications for transfers. Then, quietly, we froze the line of credit from being extended any further. No new debt in my name, without my knowledge. Next came the separation filing. Sitting in Elena's office, pen in hand, my name felt heavier than it ever had. I signed the papers that said in legal language, "I acknowledge this marriage is broken, and I am laying down a boundary." They were filed and stamped 2 weeks before the wedding date.
That date matters, Alina said. It says you didn't just wake up mad and crash their party. It shows you took steps like an adult to protect yourself. Back at home, I packed up his non-essential things. Not in a rage, not throwing, just folding shirts, boxing up extra shoes, putting tools he never used into bins. I left the basics, a couple outfits in the closet, a toothbrush. I wanted it to be clear he was a visitor now, not a resident. One weekday afternoon, I knew he and Tasha were both out, him on a job site, her at her latest front desk gig. I had a locksmith come by. In less than an hour, the locks on the front and back doors were changed. The old keys became useless pieces of metal. He found out that evening. I heard his truck before I saw it, the familiar rumble pulling up in front of the house. I was in the living room with Naya, folding laundry. The doorknob rattled. Then again. Then harder. "What the?" His voice came through the door, muffled but angry. "Renee, open this door!" I walked over, heart pounding but steps steady. I opened it just enough to let the chain catch, the metal stretching tight between us. "What's going on?" he demanded, looking down at the new lock. "My key ain't working." "I changed the locks," I said. His eyebrows shot up. "You did what? Without telling me?" "You don't live here anymore, Darius. You made that choice when you decided to build a new life with my sister. You got where to go." "This is my house," he snapped, jabbing a finger toward the floor. "I'm the man. My name is on everything. You can't just lock me out like I'm some stranger." I thought about the deed in Elena's folder. My name first, his second. "I can," I said softly. And I did. His face tightened, color rising in his cheeks. "You losing your mind," he said. "You gonna regret this when the court take this place from under you and all you got left is that little job and your pride. You hear me?" "I hear you." But I heard my lawyer louder. He stared at me then like he didn't recognize the woman behind the chain. Maybe he didn't. I barely did. "Fine," he muttered finally. "Keep acting crazy. Don't say I didn't try." He turned and stomped off the porch. I shut the door gently and slid the new deadbolt into place. That night, when it was just me and Naya again, the emotions crashed over me in waves. One minute I was pacing, adrenaline still rushing from that confrontation. The next minute I was curled up on the couch under a blanket, shaking. Naya curled up beside me, her head on my shoulder. Together we watched some silly cooking show on TV, not really seeing it. We just needed noise that wasn't our own thoughts. "You okay, Mama?" she asked quietly. "No," I said, "but I will be." There were nights I almost texted him. My finger would hover over his name, remembering the good moments. The time he stayed up all night when I was sick. The way he hugged Naya when she graduated high school. I type out things like,
"Can we talk?" and then delete them before I hit send. Every time I almost reached back for what hurt me, I thought about my elderly patients. The women who'd stayed with cheating, lying husbands because it was easier than starting over. The way their eyes looked when they talked about their regrets. I didn't want that look. One evening, Naya and I sat at the table with takeout containers between us. The house quiet. "Can I ask you something?" she said, pushing her rice around with a fork. "Sure, baby. How long do you think they were like that?" I swallowed. "I don't know," I said. "Long enough to get comfortable crossing lines in front of people who loved them." She nodded slowly. "I saw little things months ago. The way he looked at her sometimes, or how she'd touch his arm and then look at you real quick to see if you noticed. I told myself I was being paranoid. I didn't want to believe my auntie could do that to you. It wasn't your job to carry that alone. It's just," she hesitated. "In our family, women always act like they're strong because they can take anything. Grandma stayed with Grandpa through everything. Aunt Lisa stayed with Uncle James when everybody knew he had kids outside the marriage. It's like being strong means swallowing your pride and staying." I sighed. That was our legacy, all right. "I'm done swallowing," I said quietly. "I'm not staying to prove I'm strong. I want you to see a different kind of strength. The kind that walks away when staying means dying on the inside." Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "even if it hurts." Around that time, Tasha started popping up more, acting like nothing had changed. One afternoon, she showed up at my door with a box of cupcakes, smiling too big. "Cake tasting," she announced, holding the box up. "Figured I'd bring you some so you don't feel left out." I stood there for a second, just looking at her. Her hair was done, nails fresh, lip gloss shining. She looked like a woman prepping for a party, not one who'd thrown a grenade into her family. "You can come in," I said finally, "for a few minutes."
She moved around my kitchen like she still lived there, setting the box down, opening cabinets without asking. "So we were thinking ivory tablecloths," she chattered. "Not white, that's too bridal bride, you know? And maybe blush napkins, classy, but not too much. And for flowers, I cut her off. Why are you telling me this?" She blinked. "Because you're my sister. And I want you to know we're not trying to erase you. We want you there. We were even thinking, I don't know, maybe you could do a reading or a prayer." I stared at her like she'd grown another head. "You want me to stand up in front of God and everybody and help marry my husband to my sister?" I said slowly, "so people online don't talk about y'all?" She squirmed. "It would show people there's no bad blood," she said, "that we're all mature. Plus, Mama said," there it is, Mama said. She laughed nervously and changed the subject, pulling out a chair. "Anyway," she said, "if you do decide to move, we were thinking, this house wouldn't have to sit empty. Me and Darius could take over the payments, keep it in the family." There it was, the thing glowing under all that fake sweetness. "What are you planning to do with the house anyway?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I mean, you could get a nice little apartment closer to town, less work for you. This place big for just you and Nia." I took a slow breath, pushing down the laugh that wanted to come out. "I've been thinking about moving," I lied smoothly. "Maybe let y'all start fresh here since y'all love it so much." Her eyes lit up, pure and greedy. "For real? See? That's why I knew you'd come around. You always been the bigger person." I let her talk, let her picture herself in my bedroom, my kitchen, my backyard, all while the deed with my name first was sitting in Elena's office, safe and watched. A few days after that, I was at Mom's when another near miss happened. I was helping her with some paperwork at the dining table, my phone face down beside me. It buzzed with a new email and the preview flashed on the screen. Ramirez Law Firm, follow-up documents. Darius, who had come by to drop off some supplies from Mom's leaky sink, happened to walk past the table at that exact moment.
What was that? He asked, nodding at my phone. Ramirez who? My heart jumped, but my face stayed neutral. I picked it up, flicked the screen. Oh, that's for one of my patients. Their daughter connected me with a lady who helps with Medicare stuff. You know how confusing that gets. He relaxed, just like that. In his mind, I was still the woman who didn't understand money or paperwork. The idea that I might have a lawyer of my own never even stuck. With Elena, the plan tightened. We sat at her desk with a fresh folder between us. Inside were clean copies of everything we might need. The house deed, the business registration showing my 51%, and the stamped separation filing, and a simple letter on her letterhead. In case of questions, our client, Mrs. Renee Carter, retains majority ownership of Carter & Co. Construction and primary ownership of the marital home. Any further use of business funds or property without her knowledge may be subject to review. We added one more thing, a recording. With Elena's guidance, and in line with what my state allowed, I recorded a conversation with Darius on my couch one evening. I asked simple questions. So, you've been moving money out of the business account, I said softly. Yeah, he answered, not realizing my phone was on the table recording. But it's all going to be ours anyway once you sign those papers. I just got to get stuff straight before you decide what mood you in. He laughed that cocky way of his. You don't even know half of what's going on, baby. We clipped that part. That one little piece where he admitted he was moving money, assumed I'd sign whatever he put in front of me, and bragged about my ignorance. When we were done, Elena closed the folder and slid it toward me. Keep this safe, she said. And if you carry it with you, do not let go of it. At home, the last thing I did before their wedding day was stand in front of my mirror and really look at myself. I chose a simple, solid-colored dress that fit me well. Not black, not white, nothing that screamed mourning or celebration. Just a deep green that made my skin look warm. Comfortable low heels my first husband had given me, back when I didn't know I'd have to be this strong. I smoothed the fabric over my hips, pulled my hair back, and stared at the woman in the glass. I saw the pain. It was there. In the tightness around my eyes, in the set of my mouth. But I also saw something else, a line in my jaw that didn't been there before, a steadiness in my shoulders. I told my reflection, if they wanted a show, I'll give them one, just not the kind they rehearsed. On the morning of the wedding, the sky was bright, as if the weather didn't get the memo.
The community church hall sat at the corner of a quiet street, looking harmless. Inside, they had done their best to turn it into something special. Gold plastic tablecloths draped over folding tables, dollar store centerpieces with fake pearls and silk flowers, buffet trays lined up in the back, covered in foil, the smell of fried chicken and macaroni and cheese pushing against the air freshener. Old school love songs played from a Bluetooth speaker. Some Temptations, some Anita Baker. The sound bounced off the walls, too loud for the small space. When Nia and I walked in, the air shifted. Conversations dipped and stalled. A few people kept talking too loud on purpose, pretending they hadn't noticed us. Most just stared. I could feel eyes sweeping over my dress, my face, the pastel gift bag in my hand, tallying up what kind of ex-wife they thought I was going to be. I didn't think she'd come, I heard someone whisper near the door. Girl, I knew she would. She not gonna let them have a peaceful day. Mom rushed over before anybody else could get to me, her hat already slightly crooked from stress. She grabbed my arm, her fingers squeezing just a bit too tight. Thank you for coming, she said through a fixed smile. Thank you. It means a lot. Now please, Renee, don't embarrass us. Just smile and show folks you're over it. I'm not over it, I said softly, but I can smile. She frowned, hearing more in my tone than in my words. Please, she begged one more time, then let go and bustled off to adjust the tablecloth that didn't need adjusting. I scanned the room. Darius was across the hall, holding court near the punch bowl. He was in that same navy blue suit, tie knotted just right, haircut fresh. He slapped backs, shook hands, winked at cousins like this was some award ceremony in his honor. Gotta respect it, I heard one uncle say. Man owns his mistakes and tries to make it right. I wanted to laugh. This was making it right in their minds. Tasha floated nearby in her tight white dress, phone in her hand, taking selfies with her bridesmaids in front of the arch. Her caption would probably say something about second chances and God's timing. She held her bouquet like it was proof of her innocence. At one point, she glanced over and saw me. Her smile faltered for just a second, then snapped right back into place. Wider, brighter, faker. We made our way to the punch bowl. I wasn't planning to drink. I just needed something to do with my hands besides clench them. One of Tasha's friends, a girl with too much contour and not enough sense, looked at me and laughed loud enough for half the room to hear. I hope Auntie Renee doesn't steal the spotlight, she joked, eyes flicking between my simple dress and Tasha's lace. Tasha laughed harder. Stop, she said, playfully smacking her friend's arm. Y'all so messy. Someone behind me muttered, she should be grateful she even got invited. Laughter rippled around the table. I stirred the punch with the plastic ladle, my face smooth. My hand rested lightly on the rope handles of the pastel gift bag at my side. Inside, the manila folder waited calmly quiet. When it was time, the pastor called everyone to their seats. The music softened to some instrumental version of a love song. People shuffled into rows, plastic chairs creaking, program fans fluttering in the warm air. Darius walked up to the front, shoulders squared, jaw set. Tasha followed, bouquet trembling just a bit strong from stress. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, already acting like this was a miracle instead of a mess. The pastor began, Bible in one hand, microphone in the other. He talked about love, about redemption, about God's ability to bring beauty from ashes. He mentioned that life doesn't always go as we plan, but that grace can turn broken storylines into testimonies. I watched Darius shift his weight when the pastor said, marriage is a sacred covenant not to be taken lightly. The phrase, till death do you part, hung in the air like a ghost. I remembered the first time he'd said those words to me, in a different suit, in a different building, looking at me like I was the only woman in the world. Now, he stood there with my sister and didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Tasha squeezed his hands, her lips pressed together in a nervous little smile. I could almost hear her thoughts. Just get through this. After today will be official. After today, people will have to accept us. Then the moment came. If anyone here knows of any lawful reason why these two should not be joined together in holy matrimony, speak now. The room went still. I could hear the hum of the speaker, the rustle of someone's dress, the faint clink of a spoon against the glass in the back. Every eye in that hall turned toward me, even the ones pretending not to. Some were begging me silently to stay seated. Others were hoping for fireworks. I could feel Nia's hand close around mine, squeezing once. Instead of shrinking, I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, the sound loud in the quiet. A few people gasped. Someone whispered, Lord, here we go. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Pastor, I said, I do. Mom hissed, sit down, Renee, loud enough for the front row to hear. I didn't look at her. I stepped out into the aisle, the pastel gift bag swinging gently at my side. Nia stood up too, falling in just a step behind me like a quiet shadow.
We walked down that white runner slow, each step deliberate. I could feel the weight of the room pressing in. All those eyes on my back. The arch grew larger in front of us. The fake ivy swaying slightly from the breeze of the air conditioner. When I reached the front, I didn't look at Darius or Tasha first. I looked at the pastor. Before you continue, I said, holding out the bag, would you please read what's in here? He frowned, confused, but took the bag from me. He set the microphone down carefully, like he was afraid to drop it, and reached past the tissue paper.
His hand closed around the folder. He opened it. I watched his eyes move across the first page. The stamped separation filing, dated 2 weeks ago. My name, Darius's name. The words legal separation, printed clear. His brows knit together. He turned the page, saw the deed, the LLC papers, saw my name listed as primary owner, saw the letter from Elena's office. When he looked back up, his face had changed. Whatever easy sermon he had planned was gone. "Is this accurate?" he asked quietly, looking between Darius and me. "It is," I said. The pastor picked up the microphone again, but didn't put it to his lips just yet. The room buzzed with whispers now. I turned then, finally, to face everyone. "For those of you who haven't heard the whole story," I said, "let me help you." My voice sounded strange in that hall, echoing off the walls. Not desperate, not shrill, just done. "I am still legally married to this man," I said, nodding toward Darius. "We have been married for 7 years. We bought a house together. At least, that's what I thought. We started a business together. At least, that's what I told people." I held up my hand slightly, palm open. "What many of you don't know is that the house everyone keeps calling his is in my name first. My credit, my inheritance from my first husband. I qualified us for that loan. Without me, that house wouldn't exist the way it does." A murmur ran through the crowd. "And that construction company you're all so proud of," I continued, "the one he calls his business? On paper, it's a women-owned business. That woman is me, 51%, majority owner." Some of the men in the front row shifted in their seats. A few of the women raised their eyebrows, lips pursed. I nodded toward the folders still in the pastor's hand. "Those papers confirm that. So when you talk about him giving me the house, taking care of me with the business, understand he built his little empire on my name." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hand shook just a little, but not enough to stop me. I tapped the screen a few times, then held it near the portable speaker we had placed by the front row for music. Let me let him tell you in his own words. The audio began to play. His voice filled the hall, unmistakable. "Yeah, I've been moving some stuff around, but it's all gonna be ours anyway once you sign those papers. I just gotta get stuff straight before you decide what mood you in. You don't even know half of what's going on, baby." The silence after that clip ended was deafening. Some relatives covered their mouths. A few shook their heads. One of the older church ladies whispered, "Lord have mercy," under her breath. My mother's face was pale under her makeup. She looked like someone had pulled the rug out from under her favorite story. I turned to Tasha. She was clutching her bouquet so hard the stems were bending. Her lips trembled. The color had drained from her face, leaving her looking small under all that makeup and lace. "You didn't just sleep with my husband," I said, my voice still low, still controlled. "You signed papers to help him use my name, my credit, my money. You knew exactly what home you were walking into." She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Right on cue, as if we had choreographed it, 2 people stepped forward from the back of the hall. One was a man in a plain suit, the other a woman with a clipboard. They walked up the aisle with that same slow, steady step I had used, their presence cutting through the tension like a knife. They stopped at the front and spoke quietly to Darius and Tasha, handing each of them an envelope. "Mr. Carter, you've been served." The words were low, but the hall was so quiet that everyone heard. Those envelopes held official notice of the legal separation and information about the potential financial misconduct connected to the business. They were the physical proof that this wasn't just some emotional outburst from a scorned woman. This was real. The pastor took a step back from the couple, closing his Bible slowly. He picked up the microphone again, his voice unsteady for the first time. "Given this new information," he said, clearing his throat, "I cannot, in good conscience, proceed with this ceremony today. There are legal and spiritual matters that need to be resolved before any vows can be exchanged." A few older women in the back started humming softly, that low, mournful church hum that comes out at funerals and hard times. Darius looked around, eyes darting, chest heaving. The confident man who had been working the room before now looked like a boy caught doing something he shouldn't. Tasha's mascara was smudging, tears finally breaking free. I let the scene sit for a second, let everyone really see it. Then I turned to the guests.
I wish you all a blessed day, I said. I'm going home to the house they thought they'd take from me. I didn't slam the mic down. I didn't scream. I just handed it back to the pastor, turned around, and walked back up the aisle with my daughter by my side. We stepped over the rose petals, past the chairs of people whispering and staring, past my mother with her tissue frozen halfway to her face. When we reached the doors, I felt Nia slip her arm through mine. We walked out into the sunlight together, leaving them frozen at an altar that was never meant for them. After that day, it felt like the whole town had watched the same movie and couldn't stop talking about it. Nobody had full details, of course. People added their own seasoning, but the main story stayed the same. The wedding that got shut down at Speak Now. Some folks made it sound poetic. Others made it messy. Somebody's cousin posted a vague status online about when God sends the ex-wife to do what the pastor won't, and it got more likes than it should have. Word spread through the neighborhood, the church, the job sites. Men who used to shake Darius's hand with admiration now crossed their arms and said, "He did what?" Women who'd once envied Tasha's looks now shook their heads when she walked by, whispering behind their hands. More importantly, word spread in places that affected his pockets. A week after the non-wedding, Alana called me. She said, "Some of his clients have been asking questions. There's chatter about fraud, about instability. It's amazing how quickly people pull back when they sense smoke." The bank had already flagged some of the account activity. With the business accounts now under scrutiny and partially frozen pending review, Darius couldn't move money the way he used to. A small local paper ran a short piece about a local contractor under financial review, no names given, but folks who knew. In the separation proceedings, the judge didn't care about the gossip. He cared about the paperwork. He saw the deed with my name first. He saw the LLC documents. He saw the pattern of loans and transfers. He saw the dates on the separation filing versus the date of that almost wedding. "Mrs. Carter," he said, looking over his glasses at me, "you have been more than patient." When everything was said and done in that courtroom, I walked away with primary ownership of the house secured in writing. No gray area, no "we'll see." The judge ordered that Darius vacate any claims to the property and contribute toward the payoff of debts he had taken out using my name. As for the business, it didn't survive the storm intact. There were fines, there were canceled contracts, there were late nights, I'm sure, where he sat in that little new apartment of his, staring at the walls, wondering how it all slipped through his fingers. He ended up renting a small place on the other side of town. The big shiny truck he loved so much got downgraded to an older model with a dent in the side. He still worked, picking up whatever jobs he could, but the days of walking into rooms like a king were over, at least for a while. I won't lie, a part of me took a quiet satisfaction in that, not because I wanted him destroyed, but because I wanted reality to match the truth. He wasn't the provider who saved me. He was the man who almost sank me. Tasha's fall looked different. It was less about money and more about mirrors. The same church folks who used to cheer when she sang a solo started avoiding eye contact. She stopped getting invited to lead anything anymore. When she tried to stand up and testify one Sunday, the pastor gently steered her away from the microphone. Men who used to flirt with her at gatherings now gave her a wide berth. Nobody wanted to be the next Darius. Her new label was Trouble, spoken with a little shake of the head. Family events got weird.
At birthdays and holidays, if she came at all, the room would shift. Conversations would falter. My mother would fuss with napkins and pretend not to notice the tension. But you can't unhear whispers. Is that her? That's the sister. I wouldn't show my face. One evening, a couple of months after the non-wedding, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Tasha stood there. Mascara smudged, hoodie thrown over leggings, hair pulled back in a messy bun with no intention behind it. For the first time in a long time, she looked like my baby sister again, and not the woman who had tried to wear my life. "Can I talk to you?" she asked. I stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind me, leaving it only slightly cracked. She shifted from foot to foot. "She left," she blurted out. "Darius. He said he needs to get his head right and figure things out. You know what that means. It means he found somebody else to listen to his stories." I didn't say I saw that coming. I just waited. She said, "I know I messed up," she said. Tears filled her eyes. "I know I did the worst thing a sister can do. I didn't know all that paperwork stuff. I didn't know they were going to come after me too. They say my name is on some forms. They keep sending letters. I'm scared, Renee."
The community church hall sat at the corner of a quiet street, looking harmless. Inside, they had done their best to turn it into something special. Gold plastic tablecloths draped over folding tables, dollar store centerpieces with fake pearls and silk flowers, buffet trays lined up in the back, covered in foil, the smell of fried chicken and macaroni and cheese pushing against the air freshener. Old school love songs played from a Bluetooth speaker. Some Temptations, some Anita Baker. The sound bounced off the walls, too loud for the small space. When Nia and I walked in, the air shifted. Conversations dipped and stalled. A few people kept talking too loud on purpose, pretending they hadn't noticed us. Most just stared. I could feel eyes sweeping over my dress, my face, the pastel gift bag in my hand, tallying up what kind of ex-wife they thought I was going to be. I didn't think she'd come, I heard someone whisper near the door. "Girl, I knew she would. She not gonna let them have a peaceful day." Mom rushed over before anybody else could get to me, her hat already slightly crooked from stress. She grabbed my arm, her fingers squeezing just a bit too tight. "Thank you for coming," she said through a fixed smile. "Thank you. It means a lot. Now please, Renee, don't embarrass us. Just smile and show folks you're over it." "I'm not over it," I said softly, "but I can smile." She frowned, hearing more in my tone than in my words. "Please," she begged one more time, then let go and bustled off to adjust the tablecloth that didn't need adjusting. I scanned the room. Darius was across the hall, holding court near the punch bowl. He was in that same navy blue suit, tie knotted just right, haircut fresh. He slapped backs, shook hands, winked at cousins like this was some award ceremony in his honor. "Gotta respect it," I heard one uncle say. "Man owns his mistakes and tries to make it right." I wanted to laugh. This was making it right in their minds. Tasha floated nearby in her tight white dress, phone in her hand, taking selfies with her bridesmaids in front of the arch. Her caption would probably say something about second chances and God's timing. She held her bouquet like it was proof of her innocence. At one point, she glanced over and saw me. Her smile faltered for just a second, then snapped right back into place. Wider, brighter, faker. We made our way to the punch bowl. I wasn't planning to drink. I just needed something to do with my hands besides clench them. One of Tasha's friends, a girl with too much contour and not enough sense, looked at me and laughed loud enough for half the room to hear. "I hope Auntie Renee doesn't steal the spotlight," she joked, eyes flicking between my simple dress and Tasha's lace. Tasha laughed harder. "Stop," she said, playfully smacking her friend's arm. "Y'all so messy." Someone behind me muttered, "She should be grateful she even got invited." Laughter rippled around the table. I stirred the punch with the plastic ladle, my face smooth. My hand rested lightly on the rope handles of the pastel gift bag at my side.
Inside, the manila folder waited calmly quiet. When it was time, the pastor called everyone to their seats. The music softened to some instrumental version of a love song. People shuffled into rows, plastic chairs creaking, program fans fluttering in the warm air. Darius walked up to the front, shoulders squared, jaw set. Tasha followed, bouquet trembling just a bit strong from stress. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, already acting like this was a miracle instead of a mess. The pastor began, Bible in one hand, microphone in the other. He talked about love, about redemption, about God's ability to bring beauty from ashes. He mentioned that life doesn't always go as we plan, but that grace can turn broken storylines into testimonies. I watched Darius shift his weight when the pastor said, "Marriage is a sacred covenant not to be taken lightly." The phrase, "till death do you part," hung in the air like a ghost. I remembered the first time he'd said those words to me, in a different suit, in a different building, looking at me like I was the only woman in the world. Now, he stood there with my sister and didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. Tasha squeezed his hands, her lips pressed together in a nervous little smile. I could almost hear her thoughts. Just get through this. After today will be official. After today, people will have to accept us. Then the moment came. If anyone here knows of any lawful reason why these two should not be joined together in holy matrimony, speak now. The room went still. I could hear the hum of the speaker, the rustle of someone's dress, the faint clink of a spoon against a glass in the back. Every eye in that hall turned toward me, even the ones pretending not to. Some were begging me silently to stay seated. Others were hoping for fireworks. I could feel Nia's hand close around mine, squeezing once. Instead of shrinking, I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor, the sound loud in the quiet. A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "Lord, here we go." My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. "Pastor," I said, "I do." Mom hissed, "Sit down, Renee," loud enough for the front row to hear. I didn't look at her. I stepped out into the aisle, the pastel gift bag swinging gently at my side. Nia stood up too, falling in just a step behind me like a quiet shadow.
She looked at me like I was still the fixer, the rescuer, the one who showed up when her car broke down. "Can't you just talk to the lawyer?" she pleaded. "Tell her I didn't understand. Tell her I was just in love." I felt a pang of old instinct. The big sister in me wanted to reach out to shield her, but another part of me remembered that bedroom, that smirk, that little light in her eyes when she thought she might get my house. "I may forgive you one day," I said slowly, "for what you did to me, for what you did to Nia, for breaking trust that started when we shared bunk beds as kids." Her shoulders sagged in relief for a half second. "But I'm not undoing your consequences. You signed papers. You went along with things because they benefited you. You were old enough to say no. You didn't." She started to cry again. "So that's it? You're just gonna watch me drown? I watched you swim in waters that weren't yours for a long time, Loa. This is you coming back to shore. It hurts, it's cold, but it's real." I stepped back toward the door. "I hope you get your life together. For you. Not for a man, and not at the cost of your sister next time." Then I closed the door. Not in her face, but in that pattern. Inside, Nia was sitting on the couch, paint clothes on, a roller in her hand. We had been working on the bedroom that day, finally repainting the walls a soft new color that had nothing to do with the old life. "Was that her?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, taking a breath. "She's still learning." Nia nodded and handed me a paintbrush. "So are we," she said. Together we turned Darius's old man cave into a study area and craft room. We painted over the dark colors he liked with lighter ones. We took down his sports posters and put up shelves for Nia's school books, a sewing machine, some jars of buttons and ribbon. We changed the bedding in my room. New duvet, new pillows, new candle scent.
Jasmine this time. The first night I slept in that bed with all the changes, I still half expected nightmares. Instead, I slept straight through until morning. Justice, in the end, didn't look like handcuffs and orange jumpsuits. It looked like keys in my hand. It looked like loans being paid off and accounts being closed properly. It looked like a man's ego being cut down to his actual size and a woman's reputation shrinking to match her actions. Life got quieter, in a good way. Months later, on a simple weeknight, I stood at my kitchen sink and realized I didn't feel heavy anymore. The dishes were done, stacked in the rack to dry. The lights in the house were dimmed, a soft glow coming from the lamp in the living room. The TV was off. No background noise, just the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the wall clock. Through the window over the sink, I could see the small backyard, the patch of grass, the spot where Darius once promised to build a big deck one day so we could have parties and cookouts. That deck never got built. For a long time, that broken promise stung every time I looked out there. Now I looked at that empty space and thought, maybe I'll save up and have one put in. Or maybe I'll learn how to make something smaller myself. A jasmine-scented candle burned on the counter, its flame steady. I wrapped my hands around a warm mug of tea, feeling the heat sink into my fingers. The weight felt good, solid. At 36, I thought my second marriage failing meant I was failing, like I was the common denominator in all this hurt. But standing there in my own kitchen, in my own house, paid for with my own name, I realized something different. I wasn't the failure. I was the constant. I was the one who kept going, who picked up the pieces, who learned from mistakes and refused to repeat them. That's not failure. That's survival with purpose. My mind drifted to my patients, to Miss Dorothy and the others. Women in their 70s and 80s who whispered to me while I fluffed their pillows, telling me about husbands who cheated, drank, gambled, disappeared. They would say things like, "That's just how men are," and "I didn't have nowhere to go back then." Some of them smiled when they said it. Some of them cried. All of them carried a sadness in their eyes that no amount of church dresses and family photos could hide. "I don't want that for you, baby," one of them had told me once, grabbing my hand. "If you ever get a chance to leave a bad thing, leave fast." I hadn't left fast, but I had left. And I had done it with my head up and my paperwork in order. I thought about you, the one listening to this while you fold laundry or drive home from work. Maybe you're stirring a pot on the stove right now, feeling that same twist in your stomach I kept ignoring. Maybe somebody's been telling you that being strong means taking anything they give you and smiling.
I won't tell you what to do. Every life is different. Every story has its own details. But I will tell you this. Love should not cost you your self-respect, your safety, or your signature on papers you don't understand. If somebody needs you to be blind and silent for their love to work, it's not love, it's usage. A few weeks after the court stuff settled, I did something small that felt big. I registered a tiny side business cleaning houses on my own schedule. Nothing fancy, just a name, a license, a simple website Nia helped me build. R. Carter Home Care and Cleaning. I already knew how to care for people's spaces. Might as well let it pay me directly. I also signed up for a basic bookkeeping class at the community college. Sitting in that classroom with other adults who'd realized too late that they should have asked more questions, I felt a mix of embarrassment and pride. Embarrassment that it took this much for me to get here. Pride that I came anyway. In the evenings, when the weather was nice, I started walking with Miss Gloria and a few other neighborhood women. We made slow loops around the block, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes we laughed about silly things. Sometimes the talk got serious. Either way, my feet moved,
My heart beat, and I felt alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. Nia would join us when she wasn't buried in schoolwork. And sometimes she'd slip her arm through mine and say, "I'm glad we're okay, Mama." And I'd say, "Me too, baby. Me too." My life got simpler, less drama, less pretending, more quiet moments in a clean kitchen, more mornings where the sunlight through the curtains felt like a blessing instead of an insult. I won't lie and say I never felt lonely. I did. There were nights when the other side of the bed felt too big, when the house creaked and I missed the weight of another body, even if that body had betrayed me. Healing isn't a straight line, but every time I wondered if I made the right choice, I remembered that bedroom door, that lavender candle, that feeling of my heart falling out of my body. And then I remembered myself walking down that church aisle with a gift bag that held the truth. Baby, if they can lay in your bed and still treat you like you're disposable, remember, God didn't make you to be anybody's backup plan. He gave you hands to open your own doors.